that the Dinner in Hell band I hear?
Oh, they sound great tonight.
Probably my top favorite number one podcast band, at least.
Oh, yeah. I don't think any other podcast has a house band this fucking good.
This friggin' audience.
Look at all these gorgeous people.
Thank you for coming. Some of you I recognize, like repeat friggin' attendees.
Yeah,
Good to see you.
We appreciate that. Guys are looking great out there.
No funny stuff today. We're gonna.
Thank you.
Yep. Everyone's been sorry for the pat down. Sorry for the delay getting in.
Yeah, the metal detectors.
So, in the full body pat downs, 2 different lines. It must have sucked, but hey, you're dedicated. We like that. So,
welcome back to another exciting edition of the Dinner in Hell podcast, where 2 amateur historians talk about the atrocious underbelly of history. Those 2 amateur historians are me, Brad the Impaler, and my co-host, Ron motherfucking Maiden.
Thank you, Brad. Feels good to be back here doing another Dinner in Hell episode with you. Today, we're going to the late 1800s. We're going to be talking about a mystic healer. But I have to ask, since our show has the ongoing running theme of the awful side of history, how can there be any awful side to the story of a mystic healer, Brad?
Well, this particular healer had almost like a cult leader type of persona. On top of that, he was murdered in a real fucked up way. And, perhaps in the most extreme, he may be responsible for the collapse of an empire and the end of a dynasty. The Mad Russian, Gregori Yefimovich Rasputin.
We're going to tear it up today.
All right, so Gregori Yefimovich Rasputin is born on January 21st, 1869 in Pokrovskoe in Siberia in Russia.
At that time in Russia, Siberia was pretty much like not developed, swamp land, no schools.
Yeah, there was
poor rural villages.
There was no school where he lived, and also Siberia is still pretty empty.
Okay.
But he was born in an especially small town. Pokrovskoe only had about 1,000 people. There were, like we said, no school. And at this time, 90% of the Siberian population, including Rasputin, was completely illiterate. He never learned to read or write.
And to this day, that still goes on. And no offense to our Siberian Twitter followers out there. No offense. We appreciate your loyalty. But, please, actually, if they're illiterate, they probably won't be on our Twitter, will they?
Probably not.
They'll be looking at our pictures.
Maybe they got some sort of text-to-speech thing going on. If they can understand, if they're multilingual but can't read or write, then they can still follow our Twitter feed.
Illiterate people with iPhones.
Yeah, so he was the 5th of 9 children to relatively well-off parents. I say relatively well-off because they were definitely peasants. They weren't rich, but they weren't beggars either. His father's name was Efim Vilkin Rasputin, and his mother's name was Anna Parshukova.
I'm sorry. Say his mother's name again.
His mother's name was Anna Parshukova. And his father was a postal coach driver, so he was involved in the mail system, and they're true heroes.
I was going to ask you, what did a peasant do for, like, to survive? Like, what was how they generate income? So the dad did that. What did the mom do? They said they're peasants. So I'm thinking the mom worked too.
She gave birth to 9 kids, so
oh shit! Yeah.
I'm assuming not much.
She's like breastfeeding all day.
Yeah, although it should be noted that some historians believe that Gregori was the only one of the 9 to survive past childhood. It's a rough life out there on the West Siberian plain.
Only one of the 9 survived?
Yes, I saw a couple reports that say it was just him that made it out of childhood alive. Most peasants were subsistence farmers, meaning they didn't have a job. They just tried to grow enough food to live off of and sell a little bit extra. So for most of his childhood, he wasn't the religious man we come to know him to be later in life. He was an outsider, and he had a reputation for starting lots of fights, getting in all kinds of trouble. And he was also perceived to be free of moral, especially sexual restraints. Pretty much anything that was walking. But after his 18th birthday in 1887, he marries Praskovia Fyodorovna Dubrovina, who makes an honest man out of him. Kind of. They have 3 children, Dmitri, Matriona, and Varvara. And he, of course, 4 years later, decides to skip out on all of them, at least temporarily.
When we did our H.H. Holmes episode, there was one thing I wanted to ask you during that, of all the awful things he did with the killing and the murdering and I was thinking, like, the way he left his kids
over and over again.
Yeah, like one of our listeners brought it to my attention. He said he thinks the worst thing of that he did was tell the guy that bought the pharmacy that there's no other pharmacy around. Go ahead and buy it. And then when he did, he opened the pharmacy across the street.
That's the worst thing he did?
That's like, he was just thinking, like, that was one of the most asshole things he did, I guess. But so yeah, he left H.H. Holmes left his kids. So here we're back, Rasputin. Go check out our H.H. Holmes episode. It's great.
Oh, but Rasputin isn't as big of a dick as the H.H. Holmes was, okay. I guess.
He's a healer, yeah.
Yeah, and it was noted that he would come home during the sowing and the harvest seasons. So, like, he would boogie, but, like, when it was time to plant and when it was time to harvest, he'd come back and do a little bit of work.
Cool.
Yeah, but in 1892, he boogies and he goes to spend several months in a monastery on the edge of Siberia. Most people believe that this was due to the loss of a child, like either a miscarriage or a baby that died very young. So in response, he goes to get some religion. He, when he gets there, though, instead of studying at the monastery, he studies with a hermit that lives near the monastery, which is helpful. I mean, as his interest and his religious studies grow, he gives up alcohol, tobacco, and meat and returns to his family a fervent religious convert.
So he goes to this monastery. Mm-hmm. Is he staying at the monastery, or is he, like, shacking up with this hermit dude under, like, you know...
That wasn't clear.
Like, okay.
But I also suppose
like
that...
a hermit.
Yeah. Like some weirdo that, like, lived in a cave.
Under a bridge, like...
Yes.
Like with the boards leaning against it.
Mm-hmm. That definitely seems to be the implication.
Like this dude, Rasputin's like, I really want to rough it. Moving under, like, the highway. When you drive on the highway, you see, like, a tent. Rasputin.
A lot of homeless people look a lot like Rasputin. He has long, greasy, dark brown hair.
He's thin.
He's
tall.
Thin. He's 6'4". He's a big guy.
He's tall.
He doesn't. He's got a long beard.
Plays bass for Mastodon.
He is often remarked to smell real bad. People say he smells like a goat. They say he's got really terrible breath. So, I mean, yeah, he probably would have been comfortable living in a cave with some weirdo religious hermit. That makes perfect sense to me. But the other thing that's important to mention is he had incredible eyes. I mean, I'll put pictures in the show notes so you can kind of see him. And they've even found a couple of color photographs of him to give you an even better thing. But he had this, like, creepy, otherworldly gaze that would just, like, lock people in. Well, anyways, so he gets back to his family a few months later, and his children recall the many, many hours of forced prayer and fasting for any conceivable reason.
Like holidays, anniversaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Penitence. Like, if they do something wrong, he'd be like, all right, now we're going to sit here and pray for 7 hours.
and fast, not eat.
Yeah, fasting, not eating.
It's really because they're like low on friggin' yams. Like rutabaga.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't even know what Russian borscht.
I'm thinking like something that grows in the dirt.
What doesn't?
I mean, like a root,
Yeah.
like a sweet potato or something. Yam.
Yeah, so after some time back with the family, he takes off again. And he spends time traveling as a religious teacher, a wandering mystic. He'd sort of go from like monastery to monastery or town to town and preach in exchange for somebody to, you know, put him up for a couple of days or sometimes a little bit longer than that. But he was really fucking good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere he went, people were riveted by his teachings. He was super charismatic, and this is where at least I sort of get the impression of him as like a David Koresh or like a Jim Jones type.
Yeah.
But he doesn't stick around. He goes on to the next place. So it's like he has that type of charisma, that type of draw, but he doesn't utilize it like cult leaders do.
It's almost like he's running for like city council. He's just kind of like trying to like build his name up in each little area of like, hey, don't forget about me. I'll be back now. Have a family, leave. Have a family in another town.
Yeah, also sometimes he would get nudged along by the local officials. I mean, to give you an idea of how fucking good at this he was, one place that he settled down, up to 400 people would be camped out on the lawn of the house he was staying in. They'd wait 3 days just to meet him.
And have like some kind of religious experience with him.
Yeah. So like for a weird, like peasant, gross weirdo, he sure got a lot of charisma if he's got people following him like that. And during this period of traveling, he falls in with an offshoot sect of the Russian Orthodox Church called the Klists. Now, they had some strange interpretations of Christianity. And this is where a lot of his shenanigans originate from. Well, first of all, they were considered very subversive by the Orthodox Church, especially in the upper classes of Russian society. They flagellated themselves. Like, to cleanse themselves of sins, they would take like a whip or like the cat o' nine tails, like we handed out to our studio audience last week.
Yeah.
And they would just wail on themselves.
That's what they like beat Christ's back with as he carried his own crucifix.
Yeah, so like to help them redeem themselves of their sins, they beat themselves.
Yeah, they feel the pain. That,
They also...
Who hasn't done that?
Yeah.
Shit.
I mean, from the age of like 12 to 16, I was flagellating nonstop.
Holy shit.
Well, in addition to that, they had an interesting belief about sin. Pretty apropos, I suppose. But according to the Klists, in order to fully experience the redemption given by the grace of Jesus Christ, you can't do that unless you've sinned, and sinned big. So part of their practices included getting into these ecstatic dances. So they would just dance around all weird until they were crazy. around like a bonfire in the middle of the forest. How creepy is that shit?
Just imagine like it's jet black out. There's no lights and all the lanterns are blown out for the night. Friggin' the only thing that lights the night sky, the Siberian night sky. What?
You can see it, the shadows through the trees in the distance.
You can hear the frogs chirping. It's late. The sounds of frogs chirping. The creak of a nearby fence blowing in the wind. Trees creaking.
Cracking.
And then you see this fire illuminating the night sky in the center of the woods. You walk closer into the woods. You're walking closer, trees. You see people are dancing. Oh, and then you see the skinny, gross dude, like probably sitting there like Indian style, like still. And all these women are like freaking rubbing on his arms and stuff, like, oh my God. And Rasputin's just like eyeballing one of them. He's like, you're freaking sinning for sure tonight. For sure, sinning. Count on it. She's like, whatever you say, Rasputin. You're like, freaking, your gaze is mesmerizing. Take yourself there.
Oh, I'm there. I can see the shifting light from the flames
and the crackle of the fire.
I can smell his ass from like 35 feet away.
In the distance is an owl hooting because it's night.
Yeah, it's nighttime. That's how we've set this up.
Now, picture yourself. You're ready to sin with this guy. Like, okay, what we're getting at, guys, is the sin means like you're going to have sex with Rasputin. That's the sin for people out there.
Fornication.
Yeah. So now we're talking about this maiden, this woman. She now is going to give herself to Rasputin and sin away with this guy, right? But what's one specific detail that sticks with me when you described Rasputin is the way he smelled like a goat.
Yeah.
Like, so she's about to sin with a guy that smells like a goat. Like, his whole body must be so gross.
Yeah, well, there wasn't only women followers. There were lots of male followers, too.
So he's, like, jumping on men, too?
That wasn't specifically said, but I don't think it's too far outside the realm of possibility. But the way these midnight forest bonfire dances would culminate is in an orgy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, nothing leaves the bonfire.
Yeah.
Yes, Rasputin.
Put your, like, 2 rubles or whatever in the bowl and, like, it's the 70s.
What happens at the bonfire? What? Stays at the bonfire. That's right, my children. Oh, my God.
Where am I at here?
What do you say we go back in time? We get some ergot. We go to these Rasputin parties. We just freaking party it up on ergot. Rasputin.
Oh, man. That would be...
If you could take one weapon...
Terrifying.
If you could take one thing with you from modern times back with you in time to a Rasputin bonfire sex party, what would it be?
Automatic Kalashnikov 47.
You're talking weapons, you're not talking birth control? Like condom? Like you want to get involved with that?
I don't know. Had they invented penicillin at this point in time?
You can catch scurvy from them? Scurvy.
Well, interestingly enough, syphilis probably crops up a little bit later in this episode. So you might have a good point. When he embraced the lifestyle of the Kleasts, he went back to drinking with renewed vigor.
Like getting hammered.
Yeah, all the time. He would drink 12 bottles of wine every single day.
How big are these bottles?
I don't know, 750 milliliters like they always are. I bet fucking wine people are so snobby. I bet you wine bottles have been the exact same size since like the dawn of time.
Yeah, because they found wine bottles from like, ancient times.
Yeah, I bet you they're the same size. 12 bottles of wine is a lot of fucking wine. That is a serious degree of alcoholism.
How many times do you have to go to the bathroom drinking 12 bottles of wine? 12 bottles of water. Jeez.
Yeah, that's an awful lot.
Peeing a lot. Rasputin's just...
Yeah, I don't even know if I get that much liquid total in any given day. That's a lot. That's just a shitload.
You know how your body's like like 70% water or some bullshit, like 45% water. It's a big percent. Like Rasputin's like 18% wine, like kind of. He's got a purple hue.
Yeah, but he drank like a motherfucker all the time. And after a while of doing these travels, building a name for himself, he starts to build a reputation with the upper class people, with aristocrats that hear about him, come to hear him talk, and they dig him too. They like his teachings as well.
He's built such a big name by now. I mean, shoot. Dude's a star.
Yep.
Smelly, stinky, dripping with sex.
Yeah.
Star.
And also important to note, which makes him nowhere near as big of a dick as H.H. Holmes was, is his wife appeared to be A-okay with all of this. I mean, there's a couple instances where it comes up
they confronted the wife. And they're like, what's up with your husband doing all that?
And for reasons that will become apparent later in the episode, her reply was,
look.
There's... Where the fuck did I write
there's
this?
enough of him for all.
Yeah. There's enough of him for all. Which is, the reasons for that statement, the double entendre become clear later.
She's like, as far as we know, she's saying he's got enough charisma for all. All that charisma swinging around. I mean,
there was another instance where he was publicly having sex with one of his followers in the middle of the town, and someone asked his wife, like, hey, like, are you aware of this going on? And she's like, yeah, that's just his cross to bear.
Rasputin will be Rasputin.
Rasputin's gonna Raspute.
Yeah. When in Siberia,
Well, so, like, hey, man, I guess, like, he's not being a dick to her if she's into it.
Rasputin has never killed anyone that we know, right?
No, I don't believe he ever did.
Yeah, Rasputin's not so... Rasputin... So far, Rasputin's freaking just like a really likable guy so far.
Well, I don't know. I don't think I'd want to spend too much time around him.
From all our episodes, Rasputin's kind of the guy, like, hey, he just wants you to like him. And
yeah, kind of. He's got some problems. But eventually, with his growing popularity among the upper crust, he's invited to St. Petersburg, the capital of the Russian Empire.
Okay, so now we're talking big city.
Yep.
He's coming out of the woods now.
He's
got to at least shower up at least.
Come
on, dude.
Nope, he fucking stays sketchy and stinky till the end of his days.
Like, swim in the river for a little bit. Something.
No, he does not take very good care of himself. People said his teeth were like little black nubs. And somehow everybody wants to fuck this dude all the time.
Holy shit. It's so gross. That is so gross. Oh my god, I'm so... times are good, guys. Times are real good, you guys. We have freaking Crest toothpaste. We have toothbrushes and hygiene. Fluoride.
Scope mouthwash. If you don't want to be involved in this, don't forget, cut that check.
Yeah. Okay. That's awful. Okay, go on. I'm sorry. Black teeth.
Yeah, so some aristocrats invite him to teach at a seminary in St. Petersburg, which he does. And in addition to the teaching, he was a frequent of the local sex workers and embroiled in various debaucherous actions. He was constantly drunk, stumbling around town. He had lots of followers, and I mean, honestly, judging by the way he behaves, like, you could easily classify him as a sex addict.
Yeah.
I mean, he is non-stop stop. I mean, it can't even be fun. Like, it's got to be just excruciating.
But think about how many people he's helped guide them to Christ.
Yeah, and he may have honestly just he may have gotten home like exhausted, like, I can't believe I had to do all of this.
Oh my God.
No, I don't think so though.
7 women.
I think he was just kind of serving himself.
7 women before lunch. That's too much.
And what's bizarre is initially the church elders and the religious orders in the Russian Orthodox Church were fans of his too. They like to hear his sermons.
I can't imagine looking at this guy with freaking little knobby, like, broken ass, gross teeth.
Yeah,
like,
greasy hair, like smelling bad, and being like, this guy's got it all figured out.
Like his teeth is like melted caramel hanging, like, I just, and now, okay, we're gonna have this guy like be a guest presenter, like speaker. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but so eventually, well, in Russia at this time, the empire, it was one of the last true, completely autocratic governments left in the world. It was an empire led by the Romanov dynasty. The leaders were called czars, which is Russian for Caesar. So you can tell how impressive they thought the title ought to sound for the emperor.
Isn't Russian czar spelled with a T?
The translations from Russian always go a couple different ways.
Yeah,
I've seen it TS. I've seen it CZ.
I've seen CZ, but I was thinking Russian was to do TS for some reason.
Yeah, both are correct.
Maybe in the research I saw it.
Yeah, both spellings are correct for czar. So eventually his popularity is so great that he's summoned to meet the Tsarina, the wife of the then Emperor Tsar Nicholas II. The Tsarina Alexandra meets him and is immediately impressed for some fucking reason. Every description of this guy sounds like it would completely put off any sort of royalty. But he tells her, you're going to have a male heir within a year. And she's like, all right, cool. We've been waiting on one of those. And within a year, she's pregnant with the Cesarevich, Alexei.
Okay.
The heir to the Romanov throne. So, boom. He's in her good graces there right away with one. Yeah, this is around 1905.
We're talking the Emperor of Russia?
Yes, he's...
His wife is starting to believe in this Rasputin.
Yep.
And this guy is walking around with awful teeth and smelling like a goat, skinny, like greasy long hair, beard, unkept.
Yeah. Now one of the things that I saw come up again and again is that during this period of time, the aristocracy developed like an obsession for the peasant way of life of Russians. Like they thought everything that we think is fucked up about him, they thought it was just adorable. Like
when you're sitting and you're there and you're watching like Gathering of the Juggalo videos, you're just like, this is awesome, man. Just see these people happy doing Juggalo shit.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of accurate.
They're like, we got a real life peasant right here in a freaking
castle.
How
cute is he?
Look at this guy, he's so stinky.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, like, listen to that. Like, he was a weirdo. Like, he came up with nicknames for everybody. The girls, he would call things like sexy lady.
Come here, sexy lady. Come on now.
Boss lady.
Shake your body over here. Come on, girl.
The guys he would call... There was one guy he called Fancy Pants.
Fancy Pants. Come dance with me over here now.
I just imagine, like, walking down the palace hallways with finger guns, like, hey, Fancy Pants.
Fancy Pants, I see you now. Yeah, stand by the window.
Yeah, what's happening? Oh, Hot Mama. Like, they were... like, the nicknames he gave out were fucking weird like that. But everybody dug him. Everybody who knew Rasputin for a little bit of time thought he was super fucking cool. But you'd get sick of him, too.
So he stays at your house and your couch stinks forever. God, it smells like, did you have something die here? No, freaking that Rasputin guy. He slept there last night. I had to kick him out. My couch is ruined.
Mm-hmm.
1905 couches aren't that freaking great in the first place.
1906, Rasputin gets summoned to the palace again to meet the Tsar and Tsarina. He is instructed to minister to the new prime minister. During this period of time, Russia was it was dying already. They couldn't administer to the population. They had fought a couple shitty wars. And there was near constant revolts. There were strikes. All kinds of stuff was going on. So they had the Imperial Duma, which is a legislative body, which had probably 1% of the power in the country, and Tsar Nicholas retained 99% of it. So they had a prime minister, and Rasputin comes in to be like his personal church guy.
His religious advisor.
Yeah. So already you can kind of see where this is going. His influence is just going through the roof. And
he's in his ear like freaking Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like that, what's his name? Something tongue? Worm tongue?
Worm tongue.
It's like, listen, don't trust them. They come with evil.
And the following year, the Tsarevich Alexei suffers a wound, and it won't stop bleeding.
The kid?
Yep. Because he's a hemophiliac.
Which means?
His blood doesn't clot well.
Right, it won't scab and stop bleeding.
Yep. So any minor injury has the potential to become very serious for this young man.
Bloody nose.
Mm-hmm. And the way monarchies work, when you're the sole male child, you are really, really important.
Right.
Another important thing that I think to note is that Nicholas and Alexandra were like good parents. Like they stayed together all the time. They really, really loved their kids. You can tell from their letters to one another how important it is to them. I mean, Nicholas really isn't a typical emperor or king. It seems like he doesn't really like it that much, but he's a family man. Mm-hmm. So the Tsar and the Tsarina are very dedicated to their children, and that might explain why when Rasputin showed up and was able to heal this small wound, boy oh boy did the Tsar and Tsarina become big fans of his. Now maybe he used his magic to stop the bleeding, but probably, considering aspirin was just invented, when he came, he just had them stop giving the kid aspirin. And aspirin's a blood thinner. So once they stopped the aspirin, then it would get under control, and they'd be like, oh man, Rasputin did it again. Healed him right the hell up.
Blessed him. Okay, so let me ask you this. Yeah, I mean, if he was a healer, okay, when we first began the show, you said he was one of 9 children and he's the only one that lived. Like he couldn't have healed like little sis. Like,
yeah, no, didn't do it.
Like, yeah.
Well, you know why he didn't, right, Ron?
Why?
Because there's no such thing as God.
There is no afterlife.
There is nothing but an empty void waiting for you.
This is all you get.
In 1,000 years, no one will remember you.
There are more galaxies in space than there are grains of sand on the planet Earth.
That's how little you matter.
Okay.
All right. So back to what Rasputin's getting up to in the palaces down there in St. Petersburg.
So he managed to heal these people by the magic of stopping the blood,
stopping the kids bleeding by cutting off the aspirin.
Yeah, intake. Yeah,
that's probably what he was able to do. Some other people theorize that he would make the kids sick on purpose, and then be like, "Oh, it's time for me to save the day," and then he would just stop like poisoning him, and then everything would be okay. But it's probably the aspirin. That's the most likely solution. And during this period of time, when he really starts to be engulfed into sort of like palace life, cult life.
I'm hoping at this point he's taking hot baths.
I would like to think so, but if everyone is as charmed by his peasant creepiness and grossness as they seem to be, they probably wouldn't have encouraged him to do so.
Imagine you run into Rasputin palace life version. You're like you knew him from way back when you first came around. Like, hey, you're in my town, remember me? And he's like, Rasputin comes out, he's all clean. He's got these fake like teeth made of like wood, like, here, it's me. Hey,
yeah,
I'll smile over here.
Yeah, I'll put a few pictures in the show notes, and you can see ones where he's definitely made up or like looks way better than he does in the other ones. Like, I didn't think from pictures you'd be able to tell how greasy someone is, but I was wrong. You absolutely can.
Yeah. Water just beads up on his hair in a shower. It just rolls off like a windshield.
Yeah. So during this period of time, he's spending a shitload of time at the palace. He's going to all these, state, like the fanciest of fanciest occasions. Here at the end of the table is fucking crass, smelly, dirty Rasputin. And he fucking behaves like it too. He, at the dinner table in front of everyone, would just like reach out and cop a feel of the like Duchess next to him, and everyone would giggle like, oh, he doesn't even know any better. Look at this little moron from the countryside. Isn't he adorable? He would sit next to the adolescent princesses.
Oh, Jesus.
And they would all of a sudden jump up from the table because what he would do is goose them.
Jesus.
And everybody thought that was just adorable.
That's just Rasputin being a sick fuck.
Yeah. So, and though most people don't think that he was fucking the Tsarina, in a completely controversial and non-traditional way, he had full access to her private apartments. So like, like a woman servant like changing bath water and shit like that would walk in to like her bedroom and like boom, there's Rasputin standing there.
What up?
Yeah, like, what's up?
Hey, check it out. It's Rasputin over here. Look in my eyes. Gaze upon thee.
Yeah, so he's all over the place. He's completely inculcated, and everybody loves him for now. In 1912, the Tsar and his family are on vacation, and as children are wont to do, little Alexei runs into a boat and develops a hematoma on his thigh.
Like what is that exactly? A huge bruise like inside your tissue?
From what I could tell, think bruising. Well, a bruise is, burst blood vessel, blood congregates underneath your skin, but imagine what that looks like if you're a hemophiliac and you don't stop bleeding.
Just stays red and probably gets bigger.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So he gets one of those.
Jesus.
And it's really bad. Initially it does start to heal, and they try to travel with him, but the jostling of the carriage makes it worse. So he's in really bad shape. He starts getting really sick. There's probably an infection. It swells up. It's really nasty. Things are starting to look pretty bad. And she sends Rasputin a telegram asking for help. And he replies, we actually have the text of the telegram. He says, "The little one will not die. Do not allow the doctors to bother him too much." And I mean, they really thought like the shit was on. They were crafting a public statement. They had a priest come and give him the last rites. They thought he was dying. But right after this telegram comes back, his fever drops. The bleeding's done.
Yeah, starts to...
The pain's gone, and he rests comfortably for the first time in months.
Rasputin.
Coincidence?
Jeez.
Yes,
Rasputin, telling
probably.
you.
Or that line in the telegram, "Don't let the doctors bother him too much," might have mean that then the Tsar and Tsarina told the doctors, "Get out of here, stop taking care of him." And they stopped giving him aspirin, and then he fucking got better again.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't completely scot-free. He did require surgery to fix his leg, to straighten it out. It was a little fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, Alexei survives.
Rasputin.
Yeah,
Besides
so
that
even
goose and the kids shit.
but he's saving the
Dude's a
air
superhero.
left and right. But it is around this time, he has been in the capital for 7-8 years. He doesn't stay there all the time. He still travels a little bit, but he's there most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's starting to gather enemies. I think that's why he usually traveled, because when he's around for too long, he stops being quite so charming. Several people in the Tsar's cabinet, like the Minister of Finance, like Minister of War, stuff like that, they start kind of turning on him because they don't like how much influence he has, especially over the Tsarina.
Yeah.
And she seemed to be a pretty strong woman, and Nicholas thought very highly of her, so she was deeply involved in the affairs of the country, which the cabinet probably also didn't like.
Yeah.
So by extension, they started turning on Rasputin too. They were starting to get sick of his games around 1912.
They figured he was in there, the Tsar's ear, helping him make decisions.
Mm-hmm. And the public, to some extent, he was basically like a celebrity. And we're talking about, even though we're talking about a monarchy, a Tsar and a Tsarina, this is still pretty close to the modern world. It's only 100 years ago. So they had tabloid media.
Yeah.
They were constantly like, "Oh, look at what this Rasputin character's up to now." They had stories about him all the time. I mean, he may as well have been Kim Kardashian or something in the tabloids constantly. Yeah, the people who criticized him, there's cartoons of Rasputin like creepily with his hand on the Tsarina's naked breast.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't only the cabinet members, there was substantial portions of the public that thought he was in trouble too. But the Russian people at this point in time hate everything to do with the Tsar and the Tsarina.
Yeah.
They've already had one rebellion and there's another one cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and during this period of time, the debauchery is still going full bore. It's nothing like too insidious. He's just getting a lot of action and stumbling around the place drunk like crazy all the time. There is one pretty interesting incident that comes down to us about him being in a restaurant in the Ukraine called the Yar restaurant, which is like the fancy, like think like 5-star.
Yeah.
Like this is where royalty and like dukes and duchesses and shit go to eat lunch when they're in the Ukraine. He proceeds to get fucked up, super drunk. There's a group of gypsy singers there, and he's just openly groping them.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Donald Trump was right.
Just do it.
Nobody cares.
You can just do it.
Yeah. He
piece of shit.
At one point during the evening's festivities, he pulled his robe up and exposed himself.
His ween?
Yeah, his penis.
And the man exposed his penis.
Yeah, so basically he is screaming at everyone, helicoptering it out.
Yeah. Check it out how it swings around.
Yeah, and according to reports, what he says is, "Do you want to see what rules Russia?" And also, his junk is the stuff of legend.
What do you mean? What are they saying?
They're saying the mad Russian, Gregori Rasputin's dick was 13 inches long.
13 inches? That's it?
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay.
I mean, you would think someone with all this power...
It'd be like a normal size.
Yeah, it'd be sporting something a little bit...
bigger, yeah.
A little bit closer to average than that.
Like, I'm sitting here thinking, this guy's probably got like this huge friggin' thing swinging around, but this whole time it's only 13?
Yeah, just 13 inches.
Huh.
Also, there is a museum in Scandinavia somewhere that claims to have it.
I mean, 13 inches, I guess, if you're like in a pool, if you're cold.
Yeah, you know, like Costanza style. I was in the pool.
Maybe he was cold in the restaurant. It was just like, sorry, I'm a grower, don't worry.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, but his relationship to the country at this point, Nicholas V. Ryasanovsky, a professor and a Russian historian at UC Berkeley, sums it up like this. Thus, a narrow-minded, reactionary, hysterical woman and an ignorant, weird peasant who apparently made decisions simply in terms of his personal interest and whose exalted position depended on the Empress's belief that she could protect her son from hemophilia and that he had been sent by God to guide her, her husband, and Russia, had the destinies of an empire in their hands.
Jesus. So there's people that are in like the Senate and the leadership that are looking at Rasputin like, we gotta get rid of this guy.
Mm-hmm. And there is a try in 1913. He's on his way to respond to a telegram from the Tsarina, and he sees a beggar woman in the street.
Mm-hmm.
When she gets close to him, however, though, it's not a beggar woman, it's a young woman. And she's got her face covered. She pulls out a knife and stabs him in the stomach, screaming, I have killed the Antichrist.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so he runs. He gets away because she only got one stab in quick, and he boogied. And she chased him. She was going to finish the job, but he picked up a big stick and cracked her across the face with it and got away. The crowd nabbed her, pulled the covering off to see that she had no nose. So that must have been pretty unsettling. And she was deemed insane and put in an asylum. And that's the last we hear of her.
Rasputin was over there rubbing his belly, healing himself. Like, no problem, I got this. Wolverine.
Well, it said that it took him 7 weeks to heal, so he didn't really have that juice flowing for himself.
Yeah, he saved it for the good of man.
Yeah. And shortly after this period of time, World War I breaks out. So the Serb allies, Russia, have to go to war. That'll be a whole different thing. But so after a while, Nicholas, at Rasputin's urging, goes to lead the troops in the field. So Nicholas takes off. He's out of St. Petersburg. So
it's just Rasputin and...
It's Alexandra running the show alone, and perhaps Rasputin pulling the strings. Mm-hmm. We know he did have all kinds of influence because he could have ministers dismissed, clergy dismissed at will, and whoever he wanted appointed. So he did wield a massive amount of power. I mean, Russia's the biggest country in the world.
Right.
And at this point in time, as in most of the 20th century, a superpower.
Right.
So, I mean, he's in control of a superpower. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. From a peasant life.
Mm-hmm. Also, and during this period of time, he healed Alexei several times. So he's still going on with that. But his enemy count continued to grow as he wielded the power he had, moving ministers around, dismissing them, hiring new ones, getting laws he wanted passed. It was just making everybody angry. And eventually somebody decided to do something about that, and that somebody is the Prince and Count Felix Felixovich Yusupov. So on December 16th, 1916, the day that would be Rasputin's last day on Earth, he started it off by staggering into his home drunk and catching a nap.
Yeah.
And he went to a bathhouse where he would be washed and relieved by one of his followers.
Okay.
And then after that, after he got home again, another one of his followers came over and he had sex with her in front of his own niece.
Oh.
So that's pretty cool.
Jesus Christ.
And all of this, when he believes that later on he's going to meet Prince Yusupov's wife to have sex with her.
He's getting the first few out of the way, so the one with the wife is longer.
I mean, that's why I say he's probably a sex addict. I mean, could anyone who isn't have that kind of drive? Who's not 14 years old?
Dude's got energy. He's got a lot of energy.
That's for sure. And all of this after 12 bottles of wine.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
So, yeah, Yusupov had approached him and offered him this clandestine meeting with his wife. And Rasputin, who I think probably should have known better, was like, yeah, totally, I'm into that. I'm coming. I'll come by later.
Yeah. You just look at me and wink if you want me to, and then I'll know.
Yeah, so he makes his way to the Yusupov palace that night, and he's ushered into a room in the basement. Yusupov says, chill out. She'll be home later. Like, I got all his food, all his wine. Let's just hang out while we wait for her to get back. She was never even there. She was in the Crimea. So it was never in the cards for Rasputin. But, so they sit in the basement, Yankee Doodles playing on a phonograph. Somehow that detail comes down to us. Makes this whole thing even a little stranger. But so he's eaten tons of food. He drinks 4 more bottles of wine while he's there, 4 entire bottles of wine. And eventually, Yusupov's just like, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. He freaks out. The reason he freaks out is because all of the food and all of the wine was laced with potassium cyanide.
Poison.
Yeah, and it was having 0 effect on Rasputin. None.
Rasputin's like, just went a little heavy on the potassium cyanide here.
In some reports, he says, my throat's a little bit sore and my stomach's bothering me a little bit, but I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna tough this thing out because I got this frickin' guy's wife at the end of the table, not eating a bite. I've noticed.
But he didn't. Well, he was. Sometimes they call him smart, but he was not worldly. Like, you think he would have picked up some shit, but he wasn't. He was still an ignorant peasant.
Yeah. So they tried poisoning him and he survived it.
Yep. So there's a bunch of co-conspirators sort of huddling upstairs. So Yusupov comes up there and they're like, "Oh, is he dead?" And he's like, "Fucking no, he's not dead. Like, the cyanide has no effect on him."
Yeah.
So they mill it over for a second, and eventually Yusupov goes back downstairs and shoots him twice in the chest.
Yeah. So finally Rasputin is dead.
He collapses on top of a white bearskin rug. And he goes back upstairs to tell everybody what happened, and they go outside into a courtyard.
And so the servants clean up this bloody body?
I think so. I mean, if I was super rich, I wouldn't be doing my own body disposal. I don't know about you. Like, the hard part,
snapping their fingers, pointing at it.
Yeah, you didn't see me cleaning up that clown I impaled, did you?
No.
Nah, we got interns for that.
Much like that.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Okay. You just point at it and point at them and just make it go away.
Yeah,
I get it.
Mm-hmm. So, but they're out in the courtyard having a chat, and Rasputin just comes walking out the door.
Like Frankenstein, Jason, not Friday the 13th.
Yeah, he's back again.
What do we gotta do?
They run over and they grab him and they beat him
to death. So, he's got bullets in him, poison.
The beating was so severe with cudgels that his testicles were smashed.
Jesus Christ. No warning. You just dropped it right on me, right on all of us.
Yeah, so
okay.
he's beaten and he's on the ground, and they're like, "All right, we got him now."
Yeah,
so they resume chatting.
No one can survive smashed testicles. I mean, no man will.
Well, that was just an example of how severe the beating from this whole crew of people was.
What else can we smash? I mean, toes.
Yeah.
I mean,
fingers. So he's laying there still for a while, and then he fucking starts moving again. But this time, they've had enough.
Thanks for the ride, lady.
Yeah. He's back up again after being shot twice, poisoned, and beaten. He pops back up, and eventually Yusupov just says, "All right, that's enough." Gets him back on the ground and shoots him right in the middle of the forehead.
Dead.
The coup de grace.
All right. Poison. Bullets in the belly. Beaten to death.
Bullet in the head.
Bullet in the head. Finally, let's get rid of this dead body.
Yeah, and finally they decide to get rid of the body. They take him to a nearby bridge, and dump him over into a hole in the ice and think that's that. Hopefully he'll wash out to sea and all will be done. But they find the body like 3 days later because some of his fur coat was sticking through the ice, which was interesting because when they dumped him in there, he was bound, but his arm was free.
He's like Harry Houdini over here.
How'd that arm get free if he was dead, Ron?
Bullet in the head. Still managed to get an arm free. They found water in his lungs.
Yeah, there's some reports that when they did the autopsy, they said they found water in his lungs, meaning the cause of death for Gregori Rasputin was not potassium cyanide.
Not by man.
It was not bullet 1. It was not bullet 2. It was not beating. It was not bullet 3, which was in the face.
It was not ball 1 or ball 2. Smash.
It was drowning.
Yeah. Rasputin.
And shortly before he died, he issued a warning to the Tsar and the Tsarina. And he said, if I should die, or if you should abandon me, you will lose your crown and your son within a year.
Okay, end of show, right?
Well,
I'm just kidding. Cliffhanger.
World War I was not going so well. And in late 1916 and early 1917, open revolts broke out in Russia again. And there were continual strikes in the capital, which had been renamed Petrograd during World War I because St. Petersburg sounds a little bit too German. They were burning police stations. There were constant fighting in the streets between workers and police. And eventually they bring in the army to try and quell the rebellion. But regiment after regiment of the army defects to the rioters. I mean, there's an interesting story of the Cossacks, this famous mounted unit in the Russian army. They're ordered to disperse them. So like usually when people and horses are going to disperse a crowd, they just smash into the crowd with horses and everybody has to scatter or they're going to get trampled.
Yeah.
But what the Cossacks did in order to obey their order, but sort of like still stick it to them, is they calmly and carefully navigated their horses through the crowd without hurting anyone. And they even winked at some of the protesters, and that's when they knew shit was popping. And eventually, regiment after regiment of the Petrograd garrison defected to one of two power centers, the Soviets, which were worker councils. And then in 1917, we had the Soviet Union, founded by Vladimir Ilyich Lenin and his Bolshevik cohorts.
So the Tsar's rule ended like he predicted or not? That's what I was waiting for you to tell me.
Yes. And in early 1918, the entire Romanov family was executed by the Bolsheviks.
Was it within a year of Rasputin's death?
Yep.
Wow. Gotcha. Rasputin.
Yeah, he called it, and the Russian Empire ended. The Romanov dynasty, the line was wiped out.
From one peasant that lived in a swamp was illiterate, with just a mediocre, random, like normal, average Joe sized penis.
Yeah, and it all started with fights with the police.
Frickin' Rasputin.
So even if he was healing your son, do you think you could hang out with a greasy weirdo with a creepy glare that much?
Tag a friend of yours that you think fits his description closest.
And tweet that to us at Dinner in Hell Pod. You can email us at dinnerinhellpodcast@gmail.com. We are at dinnerinhell.com. We're on Facebook, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Please don't forget to rate and subscribe on iTunes. And thank you very much for listening. Thanks to the studio audience. They were incredible tonight.
Thank you to the band.
Oh, and thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Brad.